morning, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Woldenburn podcast. I'm Emily, and I am so happy that you are here today. Today I am drinking another cup of the rooibos caramel tea that I believe I mentioned either last week or the week before. It's just the last bits of my cup of tea for the morning, and it's delicious as ever. Today I actually have a decent amount of things to discuss with you. We've got some knitting, I've got some sewing updates, we've got crocheting, and some books that I've been reading. Probably going to be a fairly full episode. I do apologize if you hear vehicle sounds from outside. I have my windows open. It's a delightful spring morning outside. It's supposed to thunderstorm later today, so I wanted to go ahead and get this filmed before it gets all dark and overcast and cloudy. But that does mean that there are a decent amount of people in the neighborhood that are leaving for work, so there will probably be some different traffic noises. But yeah, how are you all doing? How have you been? I'm filming this a day later than I normally do. I just wasn't feeling it yesterday. For those of you who are newer here, I am just over 6 months pregnant, and I'm pretty sure this little baby boy is going through a growth spurt, because this last week I just have not had as much energy and I've been a lot tireder. And so yesterday I started filming a podcast and realized that I was just so tired that I was going to be miserable and decided it would be much better to wait and do it today. So here we are. Let's go ahead and jump right into some knitting. Alright, so first things first, I do actually have a finished project. It's a small one, but you know. I have finished my, I guess you could say my most recent pair of socks. These are knit out of the West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply in the colorway Passion Fruit Cooler. I knit these on US size 1 knitting needles, or 2.25 millimeter, and I use double pointed needles so far for all of my sock knitting. And these are just a basic vanilla sock. I think I did about 15 rows of ribbing for the cuff, then I did a heel flap and gusset for the heel, and just knit for the toe, and then knit until it was time to decrease for the toe, and then did a standard rounded toe. They are a very basic and very simple pair of socks, but I'm quite thrilled to have them off of the needles because I feel like they stayed on the needles for quite a bit longer than normal for me. I think that that was mostly just because I got distracted with a bunch of other sock projects, and so these kind of languished a little bit, but I'm delighted to have them off the needles. So there's those. I definitely have enough of the skein of West Yorkshire Spinners yarn to knit another pair of shorty socks, and I'm thinking about knitting one of the, her name is Olivia, and I believe it's This Handmade Life. She has a bunch of beautiful sock knitting patterns, and I have several of them in my Ravelry library, and I was thinking that it might be kind of fun to knit one of those out of the rest of this yarn, but we'll see. So that's project number 1. And then that's the only finished project I have, but I do have a couple more sock projects to talk about. The first is this one. I don't remember if I showed this last week. This is a pair of socks that I'm working on knitting for my husband. Oh, I forgot. There's still ends in here to snip off. And these are just a basic pair of vanilla socks. Again, knit with the same thing, 56 stitches on US size 1 over, oh, I messed that up. I knit these on the US size 1 knitting needles over 56 stitches. There we go. I have duplicate stitched on this one the Dota 2 logo, and Dota is a video game that my husband's been playing for like 10 years, I think, at this point. And he's a big fan of it, so I am making him socks with it that have it on it. So I finished the first one, and I just started the second one yesterday. These ones have kind of been sitting because it's a little fiddly to do the duplicate stitching. It's not the worst thing ever, it's just a little fiddly, you know. And so these kind of have been put to the wayside a little bit. but I think that it should go fairly quickly. I might work on it some more today. The yarn I am using is the Millimia Naturally Soft Sock, and this color is Falou Red, which I'm sure I'm not pronouncing correctly, and the gray is Gunpowder, and I am so happy because I'm definitely going to have enough of this red left to knit a whole shorty pair of socks for myself, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think that it's going to be really cute. I don't have any red socks, and I literally just had the thought I could technically make myself some watermelon socks. That might be really cool if I got some black yarn and either did color work or just duplicate stitched little black seeds on afterwards. Oh my goodness, that would be the cutest thing. I might have to do that. I'm a massive fan of watermelon. I can't eat too much of it because it will mess with my stomach. My stomach is a delicate thing on occasion. And that's even without pregnancy. With pregnancy, it's about the same, maybe worse. I don't know. But I love watermelon. It's one of my favorite foods, and I have been known to get one of the smaller, like seedless sized watermelons, just eat that whole thing in a couple hours, and it's amazing. My stomach does not appreciate it, but while I'm eating it, it's amazing. So I might have to do that. We'll see. I'll keep you updated on it. That's how these are going, and I'm going to be really glad to get them done, and then I can go back to working on socks for myself. Then the last sock project that I have is more of a mending project, but it did involve some actual knitting, so I'm going to go ahead and show it to you. This is a pair of socks that I knit quite some time ago now, maybe a year or so, and they are just knit out of some of my hand-dyed yarn. I had scraps of these two left over, and I realized that it'd be really fun to do like a striping sock, so that's what I did. The one thing is that I knit this blue yarn is in a tweed base, so it has 85% superwash merino and then 15% nep, which is the little flex in it, and it is not as hard wearing for socks as a 75-25 superwash merino nylon yarn is. And so after wearing this, you know, a handful of times, I developed a hole in one of the toes of the socks, which is the first for me. I have never had holes show up in hand knit socks before, and so I was really annoyed. And so they sat in my crafting area for months, absolutely ages, and I finally this week had one day where I was feeling really productive and wanted to get a bunch of these random languishing tasks done, and I just snipped off the existing toe and picked up the stitches and knit a new toe on the sock out of just another 75-25 superwash merino nylon yarn, and it turned out really well and I really liked it. So I was only going to do it on the one sock, but then I realized that on the other sock right here, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but right there where the toe decreases are, there was about to be another hole that was developing, and so I was like, well, I can make a match, and it would be better to do it now while I'm in the mood for it than to let that one actually get a hole and then have them sit again. So I snipped the toe off and redid it, and I'm really pleased with how they turned out. I think that they look really good. I am hoping that no further holes develop. I just need to be a little more gentle with these particular socks, but it is a lesson learned for next time because I do have more tweed yarn in my stash, and apparently it's just not great for socks. So that was good to find out. But yeah, so that was kind of a fun little mending project, which I am so happy to have done. Because like I said, these have been sitting for ages and just hanging over my head and driving me nuts. So I am thrilled to have these taken care of. And then the last active knitting project that I have is a sweater, And I believe it was last time that I spoke about it that I was actually feeling kind of meh about my Lofoten sweater, which is a pattern designed by Emily of the Blue Mouse Knits. And there's nothing wrong with the pattern, I just don't love my color choices. And so that has just been sitting. I haven't done anything with it whatsoever. It's just been sitting in its bag while I try and think about what exactly I want to do. I am still currently working away on my So Faded sweater, which is a pattern by Andrea Mowry of Dre Renee Knits. And I have finished the body, which I am super happy about. I got that last bit of this last color in here and did the ribbing, and then I've gone ahead and gone back and I've picked up the neckband, and I'm gonna do that and then I'll do the sleeves. Because sometimes I feel like I do the sleeves and they'll take a while, and then I'll be like, oh, I'm done, hallelujah. Oh wait, I still have the neckband to do. So I thought I'd get ahead of that and go ahead and put that in first. So that's what I'm working on. This is knit out of all of my hand-dyed yarns, and it's all on a 75-25 superwash merino nylon blend. There's a hair in there. And we've got this mauvey pink, then this variegated, and then this brown. And it's kind of a cool tone, almost bluish undertone brown. And I just, again, I love how it's coming out. I tried it on after I bound it off, and it's looking splendid. So I'm very, very happy with this. And I'm knitting this. The ribbing is on a US size 3. These particular ones are Chiagu needles, which I decided to try. I feel like I've heard many knitters talk about how amazing the Chiagu needles are. I will say I don't think that they are mind-blowing. Maybe I'm just a weird sort of a knitter, I'm not sure, but I can tell a difference between like big box craft store knitting needles and slightly nicer like yarn company design knitting needles. But honestly, I don't think that they're that mind-blowing. Personal preference. I'm quite happy to use whatever needles I have on hand. I think that it's the best thing to do in most circumstances, and I would rather use what I have rather than go out and buying a ton more. So I do expect that I will buy more Chiagu needles just because I do kind of like them. But they kind of are expensive. And yeah, knitting can be an expensive enough hobby. So I already have a bunch of needles, but there's certain sizes that I need more of, or a different cable length, or there are a couple of knitting needles that I have. I have an interchangeable knitting needle set that I believe is from Knit Picks or something. It was gifted to me a while ago, and that works great. The only downside is that it only goes down to a US size 4. I think it's only a US size 4. There might be a US size 3, but I think it's just a 4. And I tend to use the smaller half of the needle scale. I can't recall the last time I knitted something above a US size 8, I think. I typically end up using right around the 3, 4, 5, and so that means like for a sweater, if I knit it in a US size 4, I need the US size 2 to do the ribbing, and the one size 2 knitting needle that I have is not great. It's one of those kind of craft store ones, and for whatever, like the join on it is not brilliant. So I need to get another one of those, or I need to get one of those in a higher quality needle. But for the most part, I'm perfectly content to just use what I have. So anyway, that was a tangent on needles. So I'm knitting the ribbing in the US size 3 and the body in a US size 5. And I'm knitting, I believe it is the 3rd size. I think it's the 3rd size. But that sums up all of the knitting work that I have for you. Like I said, I haven't had a ton of energy and I've been kind of distracted with other projects, so I haven't done as much knitting as I kind of hoped, or not really hoped, but planned to maybe. So I've just been kind of going with the flow and doing what I feel like doing, but I'm super happy to have made some progress on that sweater. But I do have a little bit of crocheting to talk about, so let's go ahead and talk about that. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to update you on is the mushroom blanket that I am making, which is a pattern hack, I guess you could say, of the mushroom tote bag, which is a pattern by Rachel Vinstra, I think. I can't remember for sure. I am in the progress of stitching all of the squares together. My goal was to make 40 squares and then stitch them all together and see how I like the size of the blanket, and then if I needed to make more, I could make a few more. I think I'm gonna make a few more. So here we have a couple panels, and then I have this one that I'm working on, and then this one that I haven't done anything with yet. It's been really fun to work on it, and I'm slowly weaving in some of the ends, and yeah, it's kind of a mostly mindless project, weaving in the random ends, stitching them all together. There's not a whole lot to say about it. I am crocheting this in some yarn that I purchased from Hobby Lobby. It's the I Love This Cotton yarn, and it's in the colorways Spunky, which is the cream, and then I believe this green is just olive. And I love this yarn. It's really soft, especially for cotton yarn. And I have used this yarn before to make like washcloths for washing your face. And I've been able to run those through the washer and dryer, and they just seem to get softer and softer the more that I use them. So I was really glad to be able to use this yarn for another project, and I'm excited to see how it looks when it's all put together. And I will link the pattern for the mushroom tote bag down below. All that I'm doing is, instead of stitching the squares together into a bag shape, I'm just stitching them together into a blanket shape. So it's a very, very easy pattern hack, I guess you could say. So there's that. And then this one looks a little weird, not gonna lie. My foot went to sleep because I was sitting cross-legged, so now gotta wake it back up. So, I am in the process of crocheting a little cat for my sister-in-law as a gift. She is also currently pregnant, which is kind of fun. I am working on making some toys. She and her husband, they own 2 cats, and so I realized it would be really cute to make a couple little soft, squishy cat toys for their little baby. I've finished the head of the first one. This has kind of been a labor of love to some degree because it is really fiddly. I have to pay very close attention to the pattern. I can't listen to anything, I can't watch anything, I can't do anything except for crochet on this, which is a little annoying because usually I like to listen to either my Redwall audiobooks, or I'll catch up on a knitting podcast or something while I'm working on a project. Readjust my legs. So that's been a little bit frustrating. The other thing too is this is using a sport weight yarn. This yarn is it's just an acrylic yarn from Hobby Lobby. I think it's I Love This yarn in the colorway Gold, but it's crocheted on a 2.5 millimeter crochet hook. So it's a very, very tight gauge, which is going to be splendid when I go to stuff it with stuffing because the stuffing won't show through, but oh, gracious me, it's a pain because it's such a tiny hook with a decent sized yarn, and this particular yarn tends to be a little bit splitty, which is just because of the hook size. Like, it is literally just because of the hook size. So it's been kind of annoying, but I'm making progress. I finished the head off. I've got one ear done. I've got to do the other ear, the body, and there's a stomach piece, I think, 4 legs and a tail. So I've got a ways to go because then I've got to repeat all of that for the second cat. But it's going to be really, really, really cute when it's done. And this pattern is by Hang Chain, I think. I will link it down below. It's an adorable pattern. They have a number of different very, very cute. I don't know if it's a she or a he. The designer has a number of very cute other animal patterns, and I will say the pattern is not the most intuitive. It has a couple of little idiosyncrasies in it. I figured it out easy enough, but one of those is that it doesn't specifically describe how to increase, or it'll be like crochet, single crochet 3, increase, single crochet 4, whatever it is. And so I realized that they weren't specifying like how many to increase, they just expect you to do two single crochets in the next spot, if that makes any sense. So there were a couple things like that where it's just like you have to be paying attention. I think that it is a well-written pattern, and I'm very, very excited to see what the finished little cat is gonna look like. So that finishes it off for all the yarn related stuff, honestly. Like I said, I haven't really been feeling doing a ton of yarny stuff, and I spent a decent amount of time working on this blanket, which it's one of those things that it doesn't look like that much work, but there are a lot of ends to weave in. Like, let me show you. This one I've hardly done. I've just connected some in a chain, and there's so many ends to weave in. There's so many seams to stitch together. So it takes a decent amount of time, but it doesn't look like much once it's done. Anyway, I do have some sewing to talk about. Alright, so project number 1 is actually a finished project. I have made another Deer and Doe Masotis dress, I believe is how you pronounce it. There we go. And it looks so cute. This is made out of some cotton fabric that I purchased from Hobby Lobby. I have made, what size did I make? I think I made size 42. I did a full bust adjustment on this one. I think I did too much of a full bust adjustment, but with breastfeeding and whatnot coming down the road, I don't think it'll be a bad thing to have a little extra room in the bust area. I originally was planning to just chop off the sleeves and do them like a short cap sleeve, but I was lured in by the ruffle yet again, and so just went ahead and added the ruffle, which I think is so cute. And I was also planning to do a tiered skirt, but when it came down to it, I realized that was more work than I wanted to do. So I just did the basic gathered skirt with the ruffle at the bottom, rather than I was originally planning to do like 3 tiers on it, and so I just did the included skirt design. For me, since I am tall, I am 5'9", I went ahead and used the pattern pieces from, I believe it's View B, which is the longer version that typically doesn't have a ruffle, and I used that piece to add the ruffle to, just to make sure that it was long enough. And then for this one, I decided to do inseam pockets rather than patch pockets. I underlined the bodice because this fabric is very light, and I was worried that it would be kind of see-through and that you could maybe see my bra underneath of it, so I went ahead and underlined just the bodice pieces. I used cam snaps from camsnaps.com for in the place of buttons. And I used my cam snap press, which I mentioned in my Felicity Dress Sew Along video, and I showed you guys how that worked. And it's just, oh, I love that thing so much. And so there's the snaps, which I think look amazing. There's not too much else to say about it. I am super happy with it. I actually have yet to wear this. I finished this I think about a week ago, but I just haven't had the reason, I guess, to wear it. So I'm thinking that I will wear it for Mother's Day. We're doing a Mother's Day like lunch thing with my husband's family, and I think I might wear this for that day. I love the fabric. I think it's beautiful. It's not typically a color that I go for because it is very, very light in color, and I tend to think that I look better in more jewel tone colors, but I fell in love with the fabric and was able to buy it on clearance sale, so I got it. And then the next project that I have to show you, I actually did the majority of the work on it yesterday. I was just chugging away at it, and I am so excited about how this is turning out. I think it is going to be one of the cutest dresses that I've ever made. And I'm just so excited to get it done. I am making the Pauline Alice cami dress, and I've hacked it slightly so that it has a button front all the way down the front instead of just coming to the waist. And I love how this is turning out. I used the sleeve from the Mysotis dress because it fits really well, and that's how it's looking. And I have a very long, very full gathered skirt on it. I didn't use the pattern pieces that come with the cami dress pattern. I just did my typical rectangle gathered skirt thing. Oh my goodness. I think it is just going to be the cutest thing. And again, with this one, I have done inseam pockets. I modified the bodice a little bit. I raised the waistline about an inch, I think, somewhere around there, to accommodate the bump. And I did a full bust adjustment, and then I moved it's typically a waist bust dart, and I moved it to be a side bust dart, and then I split that bust dart into 2 darts. And the reason for that is typically I end up having if I have just one dart especially, I end up having a very, very large dart in the pattern. With the full bust adjustment that I did on the Mysotis dress, I ended up with a very large side bust dart, and I really think that it skewed things and made it kind of an awkward, sort of weird, bulky kind of a shape, and I had to really fiddle and play with it until I was happy with how it looked. So I decided with the cami dress that I was just going to split the dart into 2, which is something that you will see a lot more in, I think, vintage patterns, is to have those 2 side bust darts, and it's a look that I really love. Actually, the first dress that I managed to successfully sew, I guess it was first a top. I did sew the tunic top, and then I turned it into dresses. It was Simplicity. Oh, what is it? It's like a vintage reproduction pattern. I will put it on the screen and pop a picture up here. I loved that pattern. It was one of the things that really, really helped me get into sewing because it turned out so well, and I loved it. Like, it fitted so beautifully, and it has those 2 side bust darts, and I just loved how it looks. So I decided to try it out with this one, so we'll see how that works. But yeah, I'm so happy with how this is coming out. I can't wait to get it done. I'm just about done with it. I need to add snaps down the front. I need to hem the sleeves, which I'm pretty sure I'm going to pop some elastic into it and make it just a little bit of a puff sleeve because that's really cute. And then I just need to hem the bottom. So we are in the final stretch for this one. And this fabric, if you're curious, is a stretch shirting fabric. So it's a woven fabric, but it has just that little bit of stretch, which is amazing. So you can sew it like usual, but it's going to be so comfortable to wear. And this is a fabric that I've had in my stash for 3-ish years, something like that. And I purchased it off of fabric.com. I don't know if you can get this exact print anymore, but I believe it was just a stretch chambray fabric, and it's been beautiful to work with. I'm sewing I believe it's a size 42 as well, and this one. I went ahead and went up a size from what I've made it previously. I think I used a size 40 before, but I wanted to make sure I had enough room, enough wearing ease and whatnot, because during this pregnancy I have not wanted to have anything particularly tight over, especially my stomach area. So I just wanted to make sure that I had plenty of room, plenty of movement room, because you just need to be able to move your arms and everything when babies are involved. And my goal for everything that I'm sewing for myself at the moment is to make stuff that is going to be like a long-term wearable, not just pregnancy wear. So, yeah. That is all that I have in the way of creative stuff to talk about today. There's a couple of other little projects and things that I've been working on, some hand sewing stuff, but I will talk about that in a later episode. Which means that the last couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about was some books that I've been reading, and there's a YouTube channel that I want to recommend because I discovered it last week, I think, and I have been watching so many of the videos. I absolutely love it. But let's talk about some books first. So first off, let me see, what order did I finish these in? I just recently finished reading More Than Happy, The Wisdom of Amish Parenting by Serena B. Miller with Paul Stutzman? I don't really care for most parenting books. I think that parenting in a lot of ways is pretty intuitive, and even more so than that, I think that it is a very, very individual thing for each family. But there are a couple of parenting books that I have read well before I was even pregnant, because I love children, and so sometimes I find a book and it just fascinates me. Actually, I'll show you the other one. This one is one that I've read 3 or 4 times. And that was all before being pregnant or at any stage of being able to expect children. And it is Bringing Up Bebe by Pamela Druckerman. And it is just such a good book. It's so fascinating and fun. I feel like it's less of an educational and more of a memoir combined with parenting tips, if you will. So I love this book. I highly recommend it, even if you, like I said, you're not a parent and you just like reading about kids and people's experience with bringing up children. But it's basically the story of an American woman who marries, I believe he's French, but I don't remember. He may have just had a job. Her husband may have just had a job in France. And so she lives in Paris, and she has a little girl, and she kind of talks about all of the ways that she would see the difference between little French children versus little American children, and some of the wisdom and things that she learned from other French parents. And it's just really fun to read about it. One of the biggest things that I think I loved, or one of the biggest tips I think that I loved about this book, was where it talked about doing the pause, where when the child starts crying or fussing or whatever, you wait. You don't immediately dash over to the child and be like, oh my goodness, what's wrong? Are you okay? How are you doing? Like, well, you wait and see if they actually need you. Like, you don't have to wait like 10 minutes and they're screaming their heads off. Like, that's absurd. But to just wait a couple of seconds to see if they're just like fussing a little bit and they're just going to get up and go off and play, or if they're actually distressed and need a parent involved. So that was one of my favorite things that I picked up from this one. But I think that this Amish parenting one, which sounds so funny, I feel like a lot of people might be kind of weirded out that I'm reading a book involving Amish. But I am a very, very old-fashioned, traditional sort of a person, and there are many things about Quakerism, Mennonites, and Amish that I really resonate with, just personally. And so I saw this one, I was like, I'm really curious about this. So I just kind of read through it over the period of 2-3 weeks, and I would kind of read it while I was eating my breakfast. And I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. There were so many things, like there's so many, the tagline is Simple Parenting Principles for the Modern World. And there are so many aspects of simple living and, trying to use technology less, and just kind of going back to some more old-fashioned things that I really resonate with. So I very much enjoyed that. I know not everybody is going to be very interested in parenting books, but those are 2 that I have particularly enjoyed. Then the next book that I read was Jane of Lantern Hill, which I have this beautiful, beautiful copy by Virago Modern Classics, which I just discovered this year. And was it this year or last year? It might have been last year. And I think that they have made some of the most beautiful book editions that I've ever seen. This one was a little bit rough to read, not gonna lie. The first half of it kind of talks about poor Jane, who is living with her mother and her grandmother at her grandmother's house. And her grandmother is an absolutely terrible person. She is so manipulative and so just demeaning and horrible to Jane in so many, like, those little snide ways where it's like they're not being blatantly mean all of the time, but they very much are being vicious. And oh, I hate that kind of person. I hate that kind of person so much. And so it was a little bit rough to read this because the first like half of the book is where poor Jane is having to deal with her grandmother being absolutely horrendous, and her mother's kind of a limp noodle and doesn't really stand up for her daughter. And Jane finds out that her father is not dead as she has thought for the last 10 years. He's actually alive and well, living in Prince Edward Island, and he and her mother just separated when she was 3. And she had no idea of this. Nobody told her anything until somebody, I think at her school, told her. And that just... oh, that's terrible. So then she basically is made to be almost terrified of her father by her grandmother. And then her father sends for her to come and stay with him for the summer at Prince Edward Island. And she goes and has the most magical, amazing of summers and falls in love with her father and is just so happy and contented and whatnot. And it's a very sweet story. It has a good ending and all of that. But man, that first part was brutal to get through. And her grandmother and then her father's sister, Aunt Irene, they are terrible people, and I dislike them very much because Aunt Irene is even more manipulative and does that whole like smarmy nice thing that makes you just hate people. And it's just, oh, mostly because of life experiences and stuff, but man, if people are manipulative, I will dislike you passionately. I just cannot stand it when people are manipulative. I think it's one of the nastiest vices that are out there. Anyway, tangent. So the next couple of books that I read, were these 2 murder mystery books by Georgette Heyer. And I've spoken about her before. She wrote a ton of Regency romance novels, but she also did a number of sort of classic, I can't remember what the term is, maybe Golden Age murder mystery sort of a thing. I think most of them are after World War II. And I read this one first, and it's about an old lawyer dude who's kind of conniving and not a very nice sort of a person, and he gets, it's discovered that he is discovered in his garden, shot through the head, and there's a whole like little tiny English village sort of a thing of people with nobody that have real alibis, and it's just kind of a fun whodunit sort of a story. Per usual, she has a sweet little romance in this. With her detective books, the romance is definitely, it's like, sometimes it's kind of secondary, but sometimes it's like 3rd or 4th, like it's a very small part of the story. So that one was really fun. And then, because I enjoyed that one, I own 6 of these books, and I've read, let's see, 1, 2, 3, I'd read 3 of them. Now I've read 5 of them, so I've only got 1 left. And so this one is The Unfinished Clue, and it was about this horrible man who's married to this sweet woman who's about half his age, and he is just so mean and terrible and bully. He's a big bully, and he has, his first wife ran away from him because he was a terrible human, and they got divorced, which at that time period was Scandal City. And so he has his son by his first wife. He's married to the second wife, who's this very sweet lady who has a sister named Dinah, who is kind of the main character of the book. And they're all together for a house party, and there's this other married couple, and the husband is, I think I'm confusing things. General Arthur is the main, mean, terrible, bully dude, and his wife, Faye, and then they have Faye's sister, Dinah, is there, and then there's another married couple, and General Arthur is flirting massively with the wife in front of his wife, because he's a terrible person, in case you hadn't picked up on that. And then they have the general's stepson, who has decided that he's going to marry a cabaret dancer, which was also super scandalous because they were not considered, cabaret dancers were not considered, you know, polite society, sort of. They were kind of floozies, if you will. So he shows up with this girl that he's wanting to marry, who is a character. Gosh. And then there's just a couple of other people that are there, and then they're all together, and the general is found stabbed in his study, which, to be fair, he needed to die. He was a terrible person. But yeah, so it was just a really fun one. I was super happy because I picked up on like one of the main clues of the story right away, which was super fun. I like to kind of do that with murder mysteries just because I've read so many of them at this point with Agatha Christie and Sherlock Holmes and Patricia Wentworth, the Miss Silver series. Please go read those if you love murder mysteries. They are some of the sweetest and best and most amazing stories I have ever read. I read all 32 of them in like 2 months. Less than that. It was great. It was one of the perks of when I was morning sick and I couldn't really do anything and I was just laying in bed and I read through so many of those books. So anyway, another tangent. So I finished this one last night. I very much enjoyed it. It was super sweet. It had a sweet romance in it. I really enjoyed it. There's that one. And then one of my goals for May is to read the entire Anne of Green Gables series by L.M. Montgomery. And I actually have I'll show you another time because they're up on top of my bookshelf and I don't want to get them. I have the full collection of the Virago Modern Classics editions. I was able to get them for a fantastic deal. I think it was about $35 for all 8 of them in a beautiful box set. So I was thrilled about that. And I just started it last night. I believe I've read Anne of Green Gables and Anne of Avonlea, but it was years and years ago when I was relatively young, and I started reading Anne of the Island, which is the 3rd book, and I think either the whole of that book or a decent portion of that book is written in the letter writing format, where it's letters from one character to another. And when I was reading them, that really weirded me out for some reason, and I did not like it. So I never finished reading the rest of the Anne of Green Gables series. So I decided one of my things this year, I'm definitely a mood reader. I don't really have a specific TBR. I've tried, and it just never works, because as soon as I say, oh, I'm going to read this book or XYZ, I immediately don't want to read it. And so I'm trying to accept that and just read as I feel like it. But I will have like kind of vague goals, like I want to read the Anne of Green Gables series, or I want to read the rest of the Irish Country Doctor series by Patrick Taylor. But I won't be like, I need to read them in this time period. So I started this one last night, and so far I'm enjoying it. We'll see how it goes. But I love the covers of these books. They are so, so beautiful. The artwork is absolutely amazing. There's no pictures on the inside, but just the cover work is beautiful. So now that I've talked about books for 15 minutes, we're going to talk about that YouTube channel that I mentioned, and then we're going to wrap things up. Okay. So this YouTube channel that I discovered is called Ara Land. It is all about journaling. I love the idea of journaling and having a diary and bullet journaling and things like that. I love the idea of it. I've tried it a number of times before and it's never really stuck. And I've tried keeping diaries before and it's just never been something that I could read. I never really found like my rhythm, if you will. I guess I just accidentally sort of stumbled on Ara's channel, but oh my goodness. I've watched so many of her videos now. It's like a no talking, subtitles. She's just making these journaling pages, and they're so beautiful. She uses a lot of washi tape and stickers, which was kind of my downfall the last time I tried to do any sort of bullet journaling, is I wanted to have quite decorated pages, but I was hand drawing and hand painting like everything, which takes a lot of time. And so I just kind of fell off of that because it took so much of my time and I just don't have that time to devote to it. And so I was watching her and I was like, oh, this would be so much more achievable because she's using these pretty stickers, which I love stickers, and washi tapes and such, and she's combining it with drawing and painting. So if you have a day where you're just not really feeling like doing much drawing, you can still make a really pretty page with scrapbook paper and stickers and things like that. So I love that aspect of it. And then I was kind of first introduced to the concept of a 6-ring binder journal, and that just kind of changed everything for me because I love the aspect of journaling, of decorating and making it pretty and whatnot, but there have been a number of times where I've made a specific page and it's either got like really bad memories or something I just didn't like it, and I didn't want to like tear it out of my book because like then your book is messed up. So with a 6-ring binder, every page you can just take it out and throw it away if you don't like how it turned out. Like, it's a piece of cake. And so that just kind of changed everything when it comes to journaling for me. So I think I'll probably show you more next time. I've been having a little bit of trouble finding a 6-ring binder that I like or want. I got one from Hobby Lobby, but I didn't really care for it, so I took that one back. I got one from Amazon. I don't really like that one. I'm sending it back. So I ordered a different one off of Amazon, which hopefully 3rd time's a charm. I was able to get a big pack of like replacement papers or refill papers off of Amazon. I'll link it down below. There's like 200 pages for like $15, and they're like a nicer quality paper than your standard journal paper. It's a little bit heavier, so I tried out like all of my markers, my Tombow brush pens, I have a few of those, and then like a fine liner and stuff, my fountain pen, and none of them bled through. The only one that bled through was the Copic markers, which they seem to bleed through everything. So I wasn't too surprised about that. Yeah, and I've done one spread and then one page so far. I did the first one on May 1st and today is the 5th or 6th. I'm really enjoying it. I love the combination of sticking pretty papers and things in there and drawing. Like, I think that that's going to be my magic potion, if you will, for journaling, combined with the flexibility of the 6-ring binder. Like, that just blew my mind. So, if you are at all interested in anything journaling, or if you just like aesthetic and pretty and watching people do things, please go check out Ariland. It is so much fun. I have really been enjoying watching her videos and watching her backlog of videos. It's just so relaxing and calming, and when I'm tired in the evenings or whatever and I don't really want to do anything, I'll just sit down, pop on one of her videos, and just be whisked away. So that's something I've been really loving, and it is part of why I've not gotten as much done when it comes to knitting, because since she doesn't do any talking in the videos, you have to pay attention to the subtitles so you know what's going on, and so I haven't really had a good project that I didn't have to pay attention to, like vanilla socks or something, which I need to cast on. Everything that I have, I needed to pay attention, so I couldn't really work on anything while I was watching them, but I've been watching a bunch of her videos, so yeah. Anyway, I think that is about it. I think it's time to wrap it up. I have chattered for quite long enough today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and watching my video, watching all of my videos, none of my videos, whatever. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to like and subscribe. Yeah, I hope that you're doing very well. I hope that you are happy and healthy and things are going smoothly in your life. Hope that you enjoyed. If you have any projects, sewing or knitting or books that you would recommend, or journaling channels that you really love, please leave comments down below. I would love to hear about it and love to chat with you. Thank you again for spending time with me today, and I will see you very soon on the next one. Bye!